Got any public comments? Not hearing any, we'll move on to the second item. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Any comments or questions, amendments, changes? No. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as? Motion. Second. All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry.
We have 5 ayes?
Notes.
Yes, I.
5 ayes, okay. All right. Minutes approved as written. All right. Review subdivision regulations. Business. Did y'all get a chance to review these?
Yes.
I did not.
Get to compare them to
We just got some of the back information.
You got this?
I tell you what, I stole a copy from Jeff. I had not seen the building regulations, and I don't know what, maybe Jeff or Brian, what precipitated precipitated, that's a word, the idea of changing some of these rules. Was there an event or something that came down from the top, or what?
Well, the biggest reason why is, as of right now, the city does not have a subdivision in the city limits. But there's future for 2 subdivisions to come into the city limits. So before this happens, we just want to make sure that our subdivisions are up to date and everything is ready to go for when this happens. So not held up because of because they haven't updated since what, 2007? So we just want to make sure they're all up to date before these proposed subdivisions that are looking to come to the city do come in.
Just to talk about the process a little bit. So what I did is I went through the subdivision regulations, looked at subdivision regulations from some other communities, and then looked at, here's some gaps, and here's some additional things. And so what I did is, put together that list of possible amendments, and I've already had, I think, one conversation about it. And these are all possible amendments, so they can be, there can be additional amendments, they can be taken out, they can be, the amendments can be altered. And the impact on schedule, the one question is, in the ideal world, there'd be a notice of the hearing at least 30 days before the actual vote on the amendment. So right now, they're very much in a draft form. And then I believe we're scheduled up for June, where we'll have a resolution then. So once the planning commission is at a comfortable place on if they do want to amend it all, and then what amendments they would want to have included, then I'll draw up a formal resolution that the planning commission would then vote on. But we want to make sure that there's notice in the paper at least 30 days prior, so anyone could come in and make comments.
Okay, so I got the changes and I read them, and I think all y'all got the changes too. But I just now got the originals, and I read them today, and they don't take very long to read. But I found 4 things that I would recommend changing, and I'm not. It's again a recommendation, and I don't know if we want to go through these or not, because I think my colleagues have them also, and they were going to look at things for the different point of view than I am. So I'm going to make a recommendation that they all, for one, get a copy of this, because I think it's worthwhile to look it over and just to see if there's something that they see that they would like to change. And all the changes I made are super small. They're like, I don't know, they're small. Maybe there's one that's sort of a better question, but so they're pretty small changes. But I think maybe we ought to probably, and I can start by showing you what I found, or we can just push that off till next. And I don't know what y'all's feeling on that is. Y'all want me to start to tell you what I found, or y'all want to just push it off till you have a chance to read it?
Are you talking about what you found of the old ones or the?
Exactly.
What's the new stuff that he didn't give us?
And I looked over the new stuff, and I had a couple questions too about that too.
Okay.
And the other thing too, I'll say, the more sets of eyes looking through this, the better.
Exactly.
Because, it's not horrible, but I think it does clock in at 43 pages. So,
well, if you've got a notepad, I'll go through
Sure,
my
sure.
4 I'll give you a very brief synopsis of what I found in there. That's all, again, small, and then we can go into the newer questions. The first one was that there's some confusion language on major thoroughfare and local streets in one part of the document, where then it's in other part of the documents like arterials, collectors, and others. So I think if you're going to define something as something in one part of the document, you need to keep it consistent, otherwise you're confusing somebody.
And then also that should tie in with the major thoroughfare plan too, so language and subdivision
Exactly,
regulations lines up with.
Yep. Yeah, there was something about street jogs, and basically, it said, how long it should be, but I don't think it's adequate, so I think I want to make a recommendation to change that. There's a report, a reference in here to the flood report of 1985 by TVA, and I'll bet they've learned something in the last 40 years, so I think we should have that, particularly, that one gets high.
Where's it at?
It's on page 15 and 16 of the old one, section 5.
Section 5.
Of the old one, you
It's
don't,
the old one. You have
Yeah.
that old one?
yeah, so I think we need to, whatever that needs to be is, I would just say, the TVA flood report or current edition or something like that, so we don't have to do it again if the new one comes out. And then the hairiest thing that I found was there's a form for performance bond. And it's in the kind of the back of this thing. And I haven't a clue how I would determine what that was. And it sounds, it doesn't say specifically, but it sounds like it would be on us to figure out what that performance bond would be. And I don't have a clue.
And if I could
Yeah, go ahead.
don't mean to jump in, but there are some other parts too here, like road standards and that sort of thing too, that I think I need to be conscious of my limits. So I'm not a trained engineer, and I think there would be some benefit to having an engineer, for instance, look through some of the standards on head walls and street design and that sort, and they may be perfectly fine, but it may also be a great time to update that. So just want to bring that up.
Yeah.
And then now could be a great time too to look at the surety forms, also development agreement forms too. And I think that's probably something bringing in possibly city's attorney and some other folks too to look at it. So I was focused a lot on the process and so, but I do think that those are important things. So I'm glad you bring that up because I think those should all, if the subdivision regulations could be updated, these are also key components to it too, because these offer the standards on if you're going to put in a public street, if the developer's going to put in a street and Dover's going to take it over, want to make sure that there are good standards so that road lasts for 20, 30 years, and to make sure you have that, you'd have the standards and process for inspecting so very clear. So that's something I think an engineer needs to weigh on, and also making sure tying in on the bond. So specifically with the bond, like the bond amount or?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a form for a performance bond. It's in the, I don't know exactly what page it is. It's called Form for Performance Bond. You've got the old, and it basically talks about what a performance bond would be. So, there it is. Well, I mean,
And one of the key questions on this too is what point you want to bring the bond process and developers agreement in. And in my communities, I've seen it taken sort of two approaches. So one is at the final plat process. So ideally with that final plat, let's say it's a 20-home subdivision where they're putting in streets and water, sewer, everything like that. In theory, that final plat would be, hey, all the streets are in, water, sewer's in, landscaping's in, everything's ready to go. And the developer's keen on that final plat because they cannot legally sell within the state of Tennessee until that final plat is recorded, although there are some workarounds, but legally they can't sell lots. So obviously the final plat is a big thing. The problem with that is with a large subdivision like that, a lot of times that's not how it happens, where everything's put in. You know, a lot of times you won't have the topping, for instance, on the street. You have a base course of asphalt, but there'll be that little gap. And they put in that last bit of topping towards the end of it because they don't want construction traffic coming in, chewing it up, and that helps the town then too. Then they're taking over fresher asphalt on top. So the compromise then, and I'll just going back to just trying to make sure we're on the same page on this. So the compromise then to say is when that developer comes in for that final plat, that's going to be their key to be able to start selling the lots, they say, hey, we've at least got the base course of asphalt in, we have some of the basics in, but there's still work that we need to be done. And so in line with that, we're gonna work with Dover and come up with hey, here's what's put in, here's what still needs to be put in. And we're gonna have an agreement that says we're gonna put in those remaining items. And then to give Dover insurance, there's gonna be an estimation of what the remainder to go in, and let's say it's $1.5 million worth of work. And I think a lot of municipalities that are prudent say, we're gonna take that 1.5 million and we're gonna add like a 10 or 20% factor on there for things like contingency and inflation. So we're gonna take that $1.5 million figure, we're gonna say, we're gonna make you give Dover a letter of credit for $1.8 million. And so let's say a year in the developer goes bankrupt or the developer leaves and there's still that work to be done, then in that case, then Dover then can call that letter of credit, say, hey, the developer's in default, the town gets that $1.8 million, and then they would then have the money then to put in those remaining improvements. So that would be where it's tied in with the final plat. I also have seen some places that say, hey, at the preliminary plat, we'd like to have the developer agreement clarifying everything the developer's responsible for to put in, and then when we get the final plat, we'll have that second process as well.
Yeah.
So a big part of that then, to your point too, is making sure that bond language ties in with the developer agreement and is consistent with what's intended and so.
Y'all got anything to add to that? Or let me continue, so let me go on to the proposed changes here. There's a question, well, one of the things was a vacated plat, excuse me. What does that mean in this context?
So that might be a situation, I actually had a situation in another one of my communities, just to give an example. Someone's come in to put in a convenience store that had a road alignment, that was part of it, so they actually recorded a plat showing, hey, we're gonna put this road in. Then that developer ended up not doing that, and now the property owner is sort of held to that plat that they put in. So in this process, what they can do is go before the planning commission and say, I know I previously recorded this plat, but things have changed, I need to vacate that plat, essentially return it back to what it was before that plat was. So I've only ever seen that one time in the time I've been doing planning here in Middle Tennessee, but just wanted to bring that up. That is something that I see in a lot of other subdivision regulations, and just wanted to offer it up for consideration.
Something to undo what you already did. All right. That answers that question. Another one, proposed change 9, this is in section 3. It's almost the same as my previous question. The amount of surety. Is that how you say that, surety?
The surety.
Surety, thank you.
Or I've heard most commonly surety, sorry.
Okay, well, who decides and who decides how much and how is it determined? Again, same question as the last one.
So there are a couple ways I've seen it done. And that's something that, it's probably a discussion, planning commission, attorneys, town staff, and so, because a couple ways I've seen it done. One is where the municipality's engineer comes in, they do a takeoff and they say, all right, I know you need this many tons of asphalt to be able to complete this. I know it's going to take this much square foot of sidewalk. There are 80 street trees need to come in. And I'm going to look at my cost estimated sheet, 80 street trees, I see those typically are $150. I'm going to take 80 multiplied by 150, that's the amount for street trees. Take all those line items and put it all together. So that's one where the town's engineer then would initiate the figure, and they say, hey, I'm coming up with 1.325 million. That number then gets past the developer, and the developer says, well, that seems a little high.
So we're on that then.
But that's one approach. The other approach would be that the developer comes in and says, hey, here's everything that's open. I think we need 75 street trees. I think we need this much asphalt, this much sidewalk. The town's engineer then checks their work and says, hey, actually, I think you're a little light here on asphalt. I think you're good on sidewalk, good on trees. They come up with that figure. Now, and whichever of those two approaches, then they come together, because then it needs to come before the planning commission. And the planning commission then would say, all right, our engineer says it's about $1.6 million to finish this project. Do we feel good about that amount? If so, we approve that amount for the surety, and then that's what the developer then has to get for their surety.
So let me ask the engineer, is he capable of doing this?
I would say that he would be, Mr. Wright, yes, our engineer.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I don't see any reason why not. He works for the town of Dover. Right.
Well, that'll be the main thing
Okay.
we will make
Yeah,
sure he wants to be
yeah,
able to do this.
Yes, yes, I don't know.
And since
I
we're
don't know why he would not. I don't know why that would even be a question, I wouldn't think.
Well, does he have the tools and resources to be able to come up with a reasonable figure?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, he
Yes, he can.
does. Yes, he does.
So that's-
Yes, yes, he does.
And since we're talking about the role of engineer, if I can, this my little camera goes into the tent, sorry. Setting the surety is gonna be an important part of it. Before that, an important part is gonna be construction drawings, construction plans. So the planning commission would review the preliminary plat, which was, hey, here's where the lots are, here's where the streets are, that sort of thing. Once that's approved, and then that's one of the questions on process too, construction plans can come with that or can come after that. I'm not an engineer. I know we've got a mixed range of skills and abilities on the planning commission staff. A lot of times the municipal staff and the town engineer would be responsible for reviewing those construction plans. And those construction plans then get into the nitty gritty of, here's where the water line goes, here's where the sewer line goes, grades on streets and that sort of thing. So it's really important to have established where, once those construction plans are submitted, then the town's engineer then is reviewing them and saying, hey, this works or this doesn't, we need this change, that change. And then until the town engineer signs off, no permits are issued. And in line with that, one thing to consider, I know some places I worked with have run into this where want to think about the fee schedule a little bit too. Some places will have a flat fee. Hey, if you submit a set of construction plans, here's what it costs to review it. Well, sometimes the plans can be more complex or less complex. And so if the engineer goes over, let's say it's a $1,500 fee, but it takes $3,000 worth of engineer time, that can potentially hurt Dover. So one thing to think about might be what some municipalities do to deal with this is that in their fee schedule, they clarify the developer is responsible for reimbursement of the review fee. So that way Dover's not, that way if it costs the town's engineer, $3,500 to review the plans, that bill then goes to the developer pays it, so that town of Dover's not out.
I think we want that, something like
Yeah.
that. I think we
Yes,
want some
it
words like that.
definitely
I guess while we're on the subject of engineer,
it-
we mentioned that it's a county engineer, but it's a city engineer. In your,
Oh,
Yeah, he brought that to my attention, and
Yeah.
I was gonna change it, I just forgot to.
Mhm.
And then the other role that you may want to consider too for town's engineer is, so we have the plans for how it's going to be built. We have setting the surety for that bond amount. And then once things are installed, one of the things, I believe, one of the changes is for as-bills. As-bills are where the developer sends their surveyor out and the surveyor then essentially provides a survey. Hey, the plan said, here's where the sewer line goes, here's where the sidewalks go. As-bills then say, here's where it actually went in. So sometimes you have situations where maybe the sewer isn't quite lining up with the plan, and sometimes that's not a big deal, but if it gets, angle of inclination is too steep or too shallow, then that can create problems down the road. So that's where the developer is responsible for presenting these as-bills, and that's where one of the things you may want to consider too is requiring as-bills, and then also having the town's engineer then look at those as-bills and identify possible problems, and if there are problems before they're accepted by the town, then there could be action to, hey, how do we correct that? Does the developer need to install grinder pumps? Do we need to actually dig up the sewer line and adjust it, that sort of thing?
that really should be a post-construction survey as well, in addition to those as-bills. It's one thing for him to say that he put it in there right, but I want to see a surveyor that took the angle of inclination on all the inverts and picks it all up. So I think we should probably be asking for that. It's not, I didn't put that one in there, but that's a dang good idea.
Well, I can look at other documents and
I guess the last little bit, the only other one left out was that we did say he couldn't clear, or he or she couldn't clear the land before doing the preliminary plot, but we should probably allow an exception for surveying and geotech. So that's, I don't know, they're gonna be out there doing some minor clearing. I certainly couldn't do that big property next to the school without,
Yeah.
you'd have to do some clearing. And that was all I had, and I don't know but if my folks here also had the same questions. But I think y'all wanna look at these regulations, yeah?
Yeah.
So I think we should make a motion to table this, and then everybody needs to have a copy of this. And then you were saying that there's also some details and standards that we could also get. I can have them all in front of
Do
you.
y'all have copies of the zone ordinance and?
I have zoning.
They got the zoning ordinance, but I never gave nobody no copy, because like I said, we don't have no, there's no subdivisions in the town of Dover. I didn't think it was gonna be none coming, though.
Yeah, but if we get one next year, I would like to be ready for them and get them
Right.
straight and skinny right up front,
We
rather
need to
than.
be ahead of
Right.
the game, definitely,
Oh, I
I
agree.
think.
All right, so I'll make copies of that, of the old one, and
Okay.
I'll try to get it to y'all sometime either this week or next week.
And if we have any additional questions, or like what Chris did, we can bring those next month and compare them with everything, if that's,
I'll give you my notes. I think I'm going too fast and covering too much, but I think that's all I can get. So I think maybe we should table this. Is that a motion to table this? Yeah, so do I have a motion to table this until next month?
Motion.
Motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
uh,
Okay, unanimous.
All right, who seconded?
Me?
Joe. Okay.
I think he said it
I
at
saw
the
Joe.
same time. I think his ear was leaning to Joe this
Okay,
time,
fine.
so I think they said it at the same time.
And just
so.
on a process standpoint, for the June meeting, is the feeling that there's comfort in maybe having a resolution with the amendments, or is it, hey, let's talk about the amendments a little bit more, and then maybe July would be the time for that resolution?
I think we probably need to discuss it in June and bring it up in July for the resolution.
And do the resolution. I agree. I agree with our
I felt pretty good about the amendments. I read all of them, and I felt that there wasn't any of them that really seemed, they were all totally sensible.
And one advantage, I guess, or one advantage of the June, July timeline then, just being conscious of cost and everything, that would provide an opportunity, you know, if there would want to be further discussions on the standards by the engineer or develop an agreement in the surety form too, so.
And I'll go ahead and
those
send
as
the-
well.
I'll send the old copy and the new copy to the engineer too, and of course I have to get that approval, but I'm sure we'll get the approval, send it to him so he can review it and see what he thinks.
All right, so new business training on plant, we're doing that? We've belabored that point enough, okay. New business training on planning services.
Just so we're on the same page, Tennessee says that members of the planning commission and board of zoning appeals need to have up to 4 hours a year of training, and a couple different options for where to get that training from. And Jeff had suggested at the end of our last meeting, I believe, let's do a training talking a little about planning services. So that's where this is coming from here. So I sent over a couple things, sent over a copy of a PowerPoint, and then also sections from the Tennessee Code annotated dealing with annexation and planning services. Those last two were just for y'all's reference in case you wanted to look back on the actual language and everything that's in them. So they mainly working from the PowerPoint. So just talking a little about the annexation process. Tennessee legislature made some significant changes in the annexation process that took effect July of 2024. Just to talk through annexations, there are a couple different types of annexations that happen. The most common is going to be by own request, contiguous to the boundaries of the municipality, and within the urban growth boundary. And there are some additional process steps if there would be any desire to have an annexation by referendum or an annexation that doesn't actually touch the boundaries of Dover and or something outside the urban growth boundary. But vast majority of the annexations I've worked through are all contiguous, they're at owner's request, and they are within the urban growth boundaries. So Just to walk through this process so we can see where the plan of service fits into this. So again, this is the most common form of annexation. Property owner petitions for annexation, so they send a letter then to Dover saying, hey, I'd like to be annexed within. First step of that is for the BOMA or the city council to decide whether to proceed or not. If that is yes, and that then moves to the planning commission, and that's where the plan would review that plan of service and make a recommendation on that plan of service. Once it then makes a recommendation then to the BOMA, the next step would be for BOMA to have the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Next step would be for the Mayor and Board of Aldermen to vote on a resolution. And what that resolution is designed to do is to authorize a public hearing on the annexation. And once that resolution passes, that triggers all the public notifications. So based on that, according to Tennessee law, a notice has to go into the newspaper. Signs have to go up in the property, signs, and then there have to be copies of the plan of service available different places around town then as well. It also triggers some notifications with school systems and some other things like that, but the biggest things are, once that resolution passes, a hearing is scheduled, and then notice goes in the paper, and the signs go up and that sort of thing. Then after that public notification, then that's when Board of Mayor and Aldermen would hold a hearing on the annexation. And then at that point, there's a vote on a new resolution that would actually perform the annexation. So at the core of this is the plan of services. And the thinking on this is, if Dover or another municipality is going to take in a piece of property, the state of Tennessee wants to make sure that those residents who are being brought in, that they're going to be properly, that their health, safety, and welfare is looked out after. So it doesn't go from them being served by the county to them coming into Dover, and then Dover's not prepared to provide some of the necessary services. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is that plan of services sort of helps to generate a plan. So there could be questions on, okay, how do we get service A from Dover to the project area B? The plan of services ideally would lay out that plan. Hey, here's what the developers agreed to do. Here's what Dover's agreed to do. So there's clarity on how those gaps are bridged. And then also from the town standpoint, this can be a key element in preparing for annexation, analyzing potential challenges. So, is there enough? Well, here's a real simple one. Hey, the height of this building is 45 feet. Does Dover have fire apparatus that could reach all the way up to 45 feet, or is that a problem? Or are there going to be some challenges providing enough water pressure there to be able to service a large community or so? So this plan of services is designed hopefully to jog and get that process going. Hey, is the municipality in a position really to take on this new property and provide the services that are needed there? And then finally, plan of services can also serve as a tool for cost benefit analysis. So as you've outlined, hey, here's everything the town is doing. What are some of the costs the town may be looking to incur, and then what are the benefits of bringing in this new property? So plan of services doesn't obviously have like the plan of services that we've done so far don't have anything like that baked in, but they can just provide a tool for the town to say, hey, is it worth to bring in this property, or is this property going to be actually maybe more expensive than the cost of the services to bring it in. And so in the annexation process, you saw there are a couple different touch points on that plan of services where both, the planning commission has a chance to review it and make its recommendation, but then also the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, will look at that plan of services, and also there's a public hearing, so there's a chance for public input on all this too. So trying to create multiple layers, multiple opportunities for folks to give input. So TCA requirements for the plan of services. And it's one of the things I attached was just a copy of that part of the Tennessee code there. So plan of services must be adopted prior to annexation. And then the TCA has a list there. It says shall include but not be limited to. So police protection, fire protection, water service, electrical service, sanitary sewer service, solid waste collection, road and street construction and repair, recreational facilities and programs, street lighting, zoning services. And, you know, a lot of these are gonna be sort of straight out, you know, town of Dover has the recreational facilities that it has, and is that adequate if the population increases by, say, 5 or 15? That sort of thing. And a lot of times annexations are happening where there are existing streets, so it's pretty straightforward. And so some of these also may fall under other groups, so electrical service being provided by the utility provider as opposed to Dover. But then for the planning services, we just want to make sure that's noted in the planning services. Hey, this isn't Dover covered, this is the developer, this is the utility will have that covered, that sort of thing. I think one of the challenges that I've come across too is annexations sometimes are coming in with an existing structure or structures on it, but a lot of times too, it's raw land. So that gets into some interesting questions, I think, sometimes on, you know, hey, what's the provision of service if it's a 5-acre vacant lot? You know, just understanding that there could be an annexation process bringing that land in, but then if that land is subsequently developed, whether someone's looking to put homes on there or or an office building or something like that, then obviously there's that separate process that will go through with the site plan and that sort of thing too. And then I should have added also in context with annexation, a zoning recommendation may happen at that same time too, so that can be sort of a factor.
Quick question on that though.
Yeah.
Say if somebody's going to annex the property in and it already had houses on it that were built in the county that has no codes, how would that affect like the me going back and making sure they're up to code? You see what I'm saying? How would they be just grandfathered in as they are, or?
I think you hit it right on the head. So they're existing non-conforming structures in because they were legally permitted at the time under the county regulations, but now they've been brought in. So they don't need to retrofit necessarily the code, but if at some point, let's say it's 2 houses there that get knocked down, we want to create 3 lots, then those new lots and those new houses would have to hit the code.
What about if they did any alterations or improvements to that house? Then would they have to meet, if we did have a code for that, they would have to meet our codes?
They should, yes.
So, I mean, as long as, their grandfather laws, they're not touched. But then if something, they do any alteration to it that meets our codes, then they have to follow the codes.
And that brings up an important point too. If they have an existing degree of nonconformity, so let's say let's say the front setback is 40 feet and their house is 30 feet from the right of way, so they're 10 feet within that front setback. Any improvements they would make cannot go further, cannot create greater nonconformity. So they couldn't add a front porch on the front that would move that setback from 30 to 25. So that's a very important point to make.
Your grandfather to a certain limit.
What about the upkeep of the property? If, just say it's annexed in and the property's not a grass and things sitting there, how does that affect the new codes?
Well, once they're part of the municipality, then
Have
they're
to clean
subject
it
to
up.
the codes.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that Tennessee did too was the annexation process is challenging. The annexation by referendum is another set of layers. So it does, and I don't know if this was the intent, but what it does mean is annexation is challenging enough where the only annexations that I've seen in my different communities since I've become a planner here in Middle Tennessee have all been at owner request. So, you know, I think that's another point to keep in mind, you know, in that scenario, that owner has asked to come into Dover, so they know, hey,
It's
these
a
are the
struggle
municipal codes.
for us to keep clean up. It really is a struggle for people, some people, not everybody. I know it is for Jeff, he deals with it every day. But, you know, we wouldn't want him to come in and then have all these junk cars or whatever, and then it be grandfathered in because they were once in the county allowed to do it. So we're allowed to go in and make that cleanup if they want to be a part of the city, right? Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I think it helps too, again, they're asking to come into
Yes,
Dover, so
exactly.
eyes wide open.
Exactly, exactly.
So then are you referring to the house that has the junk cars asking for being in the city, or the lot beside them asking to be?
I don't have anybody in mind. That was just a
No, I'm just-
question in
I'm just
general.
giving a scenario.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you have a lot here that's in the county and the person has bought this lot, well, they have the opportunity to come into council, cause the reading, we have to notify the neighbors, correct? And then if it's grandfathered, I mean, if they go into the city, then that part, they are responsible to clean their stuff.
Right, that's what he's saying, that they would,
Can we hold them out of annexation until they clean the property?
that was my next question. Sorry, Jeff, you stole it.
And Dover has, Dover can make, Dover makes a decision, hey, owners petition to come in, and Dover can say, no,
Until you clean it up, we can't annex it. Right, okay, okay. We have that option, okay.
And it could also be, it could be a scenario like that, it could also be, hey, the dollars just don't work for the town to take in this, you have this new residence, it's gonna require all these additional services, and right now Dover's just not in a position to do it, or Dover is in a position. And plan of service is designed to help tease that out a little bit too, hopefully. And then just continuing on, school system, and obviously if the municipality doesn't have its own school system, then it's just notification to county schools. Talked a little bit about services that may be excluded or provided by others. An important point of any plan of services is that shall include a reasonable implementation schedule for the delivery of comparable services. So the intent on this is so that if Dover or potentially the property owner make promises, hey, we're gonna clean up those cars as part of the annexation process, that there's some sort of cap on it so it doesn't become open-ended where, trying to be fair to the property owner, also trying to be fair to Dover, where, hey, we're promising to bring in all these services and it just never happens. So that's where the requirement is to have that schedule. Planning Commission has to review the plan of services before the Board of Mayor and Alderman public hearing every 7 days. And then, worth noting too, municipality may not annex territory if it is in default on a prior plan of services. So state of Tennessee says, hey, if you're not doing your part on a previous annexation, you should be annexing new property, fix that first before you annex new property.
So I'll need to add this in the vote on next month.
For training. So that was just a quick overview on planning services and where it fits in within that annexation process.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yes. Very good.
Are we on the other side of that? Are we good with that? We're done. I think that's it though. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. You should want to give her a chance to say. She's too slow. Very fast. All right. Who's
Okay, y'all think they said it, and I'm telling you.
Adjourn.
I'll get y'all,
Yes.
so I'll get y'all a copy of that, of the old one.
Here's the great rules of order. We're going to use that.
It was at that day.
That's a good thing. Yeah, this is your book.
Yes.
I'm not going to steal it, I promise. Now I got witnesses.